It's time for the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Each week, Trading Stocks Made Easy demystifies stock trading and investing so you can profit big. And now, here's the host of Trading Stocks Made Easy, the wealthy investor, Tyrone Jackson.
Hey there, everybody. It's Tyrone Jackson, the wealthy investor, and thank you for joining me for another special edition of Trading Stocks Made Easy. Now, today, I'm really excited. I have one of my students on from Los Angeles who's done very well for himself, not only financially, but also in his comprehension of advanced trading. So we're probably going to touch on some of that today. Nobody likes to come to the studio anymore, but Mickey Kasab. Hello, my friend.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Okay, glad to have you here. And we were talking before we started rolling. You actually live like 11 minutes away from the studio, right?
Yeah, I think it's like more like 3 minutes away.
Well, listen, you know, I got to drag you in here at some point for instead of a phone patch, we'll do a live one-on-one. How's that sound?
All right. Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Well, first of all, you have been a happy member of the Wealthy Investor Program, the live program, for over 5 years now. And I just want to know, first of all, how did you find the program and what interested you in stock market trading?
A little over 5 years ago, I had started to look at this IRA that I had, and I had it since I was 17. And I started with a chunk of money, and I don't remember what it was. It wasn't much. And I put in $100 a month since I was 17. And I think I was 30, almost 34 at the time kind of thing. And I had, I think, 17,000, which came out to 15,000 once I liquidated that or transferred it over to myself. And so basically it made pretty much exactly what I had put into it. So it made nothing. And I was like, great. So by the time I retire, I'll be able to buy a really bad car and try. So I was like, there's got to be something else. There's got to be like some other way that people can survive and actually retire. So I started looking around, and then I started asking around. And I knew about stocks, but it was like this foreign concept. And actually, two of my friends at the time, were in your program or had been in your program for, a few years. And so I was talking to them, and they're like, oh, you should go to Bring a Friend. So I went to the Bring a Friend, and I was a little skeptical. I was, like, oh, okay, is this going to work? But it completely made sense. And I was like, okay, I'm going to sign up. And instantly, was off and making money, and it was great. And very quickly realized, oh, I'll definitely be able to retire. This is not a problem anymore.
Now, this is interesting because although you reside in Los Angeles, where is your family from in terms of the United States? And I know your mother's an entrepreneur with her own store. Tell us that story. So
my parents are originally from upstate New York, and we're all from actually upstate New York. And, my dad was more kind of the entrepreneur at the time. He had his own shop, like a business with like his my uncle, his brother-in-law, I should say. And, he also, worked in manufacturing and things like that. And we moved out here. He went into manufacturing. My mom did her thing. And then now they're retired in Big Bear, California, and they run a successful lodge up in Big Bear. They do, very well. And I mean, I kind of followed in their footsteps. Like when I was young, I was, before I was allowed to get a job, I started my own landscaping business. And so I had my own landscaping business for about 5 years. And then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard work. So I quit doing that. But yeah, that's where my family's from and where they are now.
So you had a little bit of the entrepreneurial spirit about you, right? And what was the moment you realized when you started trading, like, wait a minute, I'm doing something where I could be wealthy or rich, or at the very least have a steady income stream? When did that really impact you?
Well, I think I very quickly started to realize that, but I was waiting for the shoe to drop. And I was like, I was taking everything in, I was doing all the trades and everything was working out great. And, did this for like 2 years before I was like, okay, no, there's no shoe. Like there's, just strategies that you put in place for different situations, and you follow the strategy and you're solid. And so it was fairly quickly, but I didn't believe it for about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, I see it happening. I see the trajectory. I just didn't believe it for 2 years.
Now, talk about your mindset, right? So if you were making money trading stocks, but you couldn't believe it, what was going on in your head that this will someday, this financial faucet, if you will someday shut off? Was that the idea?
Well, it was, it was, all those money beliefs that, you instilled in you. And, one was money doesn't grow on trees. And then the other one that really, was one is that, hard work brings success. And this is, conceptually, you have to think about this stuff, but it's not hard work at all. It, takes a couple clicks and you're done. So it's, I think those are the two, that really were my mental battle with myself.
And I think one of the things that's interesting, because you and I have talked in private, is when
Mm-hmm.
you start to awaken to the idea that maybe someday I could be a millionaire doing this, trading stocks online, selling covered calls, you have an awakening, but you have to go home to your spouse, right? And that light bulb has to go on for them. And you have a very supportive spouse. Was your spouse willing to accept the idea that this is something that you guys could create and have financial freedom? Talk to us about that process.
So that process, took a little bit of time. She at first was like, okay, what did you get yourself into? And then she's like, well, you can play with your money, kind of thing like that. And, I, had my own little account and I grew it. And, I think it was about a year, maybe a little over a year later into the program, she was like, so where's your account now? And I showed her and she was like, you made that much? So then she was like, okay, I'll let you, have my money and you can trade with that. And then it was, and now she's just like, okay, she's like, just let me know when I can retire. That's all I want to know.
Cue me when the retirement bell rings, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And people are going to hear you. And if they listen to the show, on a regular basis, they know that we're foundationally discussing covered calls because it's the best way to generate residual income. But what's fascinating about your journey is that you know a lot more than just covered call writing, right? So how do you feel about covered calls now mixed with, let's say, spreads or bear call spreads, for example? Do you have a combination that works for you? Yeah,
one of my favorites is I like to hedge myself. So I like to have covered calls and spreads on, at the same time. And so that I have downside protection. And so it doesn't matter, what happens with, the covered call or the spread, that I'm, okay. There's, obviously a little bit more involved than a covered call. Covered calls are just very simple and easy and, very easy to understand, see, and execute. And spreads are, I would say, still easy, but there's some layers to them. So you have to kind of like make sure you're thinking about everything as you're placing them and or, setting those up. But yeah, I like to make sure that I'm covered no matter which direction the stock goes.
Correct. And when you say covered, right, for some of us, it means I'm going to sell a covered call and set up the downside protection on my bear call spreads for 7 days. For some people, they're more 14-day traders. And then others say, no, I'm just going to trade a couple times a month and let the stock do what it does. What's the duration that you favor?
I would say most of the time is a 7, but sometimes due to 7-day, but sometimes due to the market and I'll go out as far as, I'll do 14-day, I'll do 21-day, I've done, I'll do set a 30-day. It just depends on the stock, the market, volatility, and things like that. But most of those are, 7-day. And, it's, the spreads, I think the power in the spreads that, a lot of people miss is you're not using all of your capital, to set those up. So you can have a bunch of cash on the side and set up the spread because the spread's not going to hold all of that cash.
Mm-hmm. So you favor spreads. You like them as a form of leverage. And I have to tell you, I like spreads more and more because, as I always say when I'm teaching in the class, when I first started trading 20 plus years ago, you would sell a covered call that would expire the third Friday of the month. And then almost magically, we moved to weekly covered calls, right? And in the pipeline now, we're going to go to daily covered calls. So, daily spreads or spreads every 5 days are very profitable, particularly if the stock is highly volatile. Now, a lot of people in the Wealthy Investor Program love volatility trading. You buy the stock, it goes up $1, the software sells it for you. Are you much of a volatility trader?
I wouldn't say I'm much of a volatility trader. During certain markets and certain times, I definitely place, volatility trades. I was, in July, I was having a great time with volatility. But for me, I guess a little more cautious in that sense. So for volatility, it's certain times of the year, certain markets for those.
Mm-hmm. So you'll probably, during the fourth quarter, it'll just be game on for you because of that window dressing that goes on, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And if you've been trading for 5 years, I mean, you obviously see the proof in your account. And obviously your accountant says, here's how much you owe, sir, for those trading profits. And nobody stays in this program for a long time without having to overcome some sort of limited internal beliefs, right? Because after 5 years, and you've been through a lot of markets that have had its ups and downs, if I asked you for 3 internal beliefs that you've had to overcome to get to where you are now, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
I would have to say those, at least the 2 beliefs that I had said before: money doesn't grow on trees, and it has to be hard. You have to put in hard work in order to be successful. I don't think this is hard work. I think it takes practice. I think you have to look through it a couple times and try things slowly. But it's definitely not hard work. And, it almost sometimes feels like in this that money is growing on trees when you place a covered call and the next day, all of a sudden you have $300 in your account and you're like, I literally clicked 3 buttons. So I would say those 2. And then I think, because we've been through, a bunch of things between, tweets affecting the market to COVID affecting the market to, all kinds of things in the last couple of years. I think the last one was COVID when that first hit, and, the switch from a lot of institutions setting up covered calls to doing more spreads so they weren't in the stocks, so the stocks were dropping pretty drastically and going, okay, so how do I work through this? Because that was very new for a lot of us in the program. And so that was probably like the last one. But then, you guided us right through it, so it wasn't a problem.
Right. And here's a softball question for you, Mickey. Have you ever lost money on a trade?
Yeah, Pinterest.
Right. I mean, we all have. And it always strikes me that people think, well, I'm going to start trading my own money in my account, my IRA, my cash account, and I'm just never going to have a stock that goes in the opposite direction.
Yeah. I mean, what I think about that is I think people go, every trade has to work, and it's no. You follow a strategy. And I think that's some of the hardest part about the discipline is people start a strategy and then they go like, well, maybe if I just did this and it worked out, it would be better. But if you just stick with the strategy, then, 90% of your trades are going to work out. So the 10% that don't, it's fine because 90% did. So at the end of the year, you have made way more than you supposedly lost. You didn't lose anything. That's, to me, what is great about it.
So when you look at taking a loss, sometimes we'll do something called a paid to leave strategy, right? Where the market will essentially give us covered call premium to sell the stock at a loss. You deduct the covered call premium for what your loss is. It would never be your total loss if you didn't have a covered call, right? Because you're getting income to leave the trade. When you leave a trade using paid to leave, for you, do you know where you're going to redeploy that capital into your next trade?
Yes. I figured that out beforehand.
Okay.
So I look back at, the stocks and how each stock has performed, over the last year. And I pick a Dow stock that, has a dividend and that has done really well, and I stick it in that.
And so I always say from profits to dividends, right? So if you're, if you're getting rid of a stock that didn't perform well, and then you're going into like a Dow component with a dividend, it is possible to completely make up that loss in 6 months to a year, and you just move on. It's like having your heart broken in a relationship, right? At some point, you're supposed to just move on. And you've taken to that idea. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing, Mickey, about you that's also interesting, you're at everything. If I have an event in Maui, you are there. If you're making good money in all of your accounts and managing your wife's money, why do you keep showing up for every online advanced workshop? Why are you there if you're already, doing so well?
Well, because there are, one, it's just being around like-minded people is just, it's nice, being able to talk stocks and, freely and open. But, a lot of it also is, just going over the different strategies, kind of looking at this market, my thoughts on what a good strategy would be, and then seeing what you or other people bring. Because when we do the practice drills at the table, there'll be 5 of us, and we might all have 5 right answers, but they're slightly different in execution. Mm-hmm. But then also, and the last is mindset. You really, it's like you mentioned before about mindset. You have to, you kind of have to open your mind to this. And the longer you're in the program, the more your mind opens, the more successful you are at it. The more income you bring in, and financial freedom. So I'm there for all of those reasons.
Well, when we come back on the other side of this break, I want to touch upon the idea of growth, because to go from covered calls to sophisticated spread strategies, clearly your beliefs have changed, and where you see yourself in the future. Today, we're talking about a trader's journey with Mickey Kassab right here on the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. We'll be right back.
Want to increase your stock market trading profits? Then you need to start your monthly membership to WITradeschool.com right now. Don't understand how to write covered calls for monthly income? No problem. Simply review Tyrone's latest stock trades in our video library as many times as you need. WITradeschool.com is all about helping you get the financial education you need to earn money in the stock market and change your financial life. Tyrone Jackson, the wealthy investor, has helped his students earn thousands of dollars per month trading stocks online from home. These are people just like you. So what are you waiting for? Follow Tyrone Jackson's red-hot stock trades and investment strategies today. Don't wait. Start your monthly membership at WITradeschool.com right now.
Here we are, Tyrone Jackson, back with A Trader's Journey. It's Mickey Kassab on the line today, and he's sharing his journey as to how he's evolved internally, and as well as his trades, right? And then we'll get into specific stocks and Dow stocks and all that, so don't go anywhere. So, Mickey, to become a successful stock trader is one thing, but to begin to understand how to trade options and how to use leverage, totally different skill set. So you seem to have no problem with, theta and delta in terms of buying leaps, right? And the same thing with setting up spreads. Explain to us how you digested that information. Because sometimes when we get into the Greeks, it gets a little bit hairy, and how you've incorporated that into your life. Because you just can't walk into a cookout now and have a conversation with anyone because you're pretty much at an advanced level. How did you get there? That is
a multi-tiered question. So, I have, always been good at math, but I have to say, the options, the spreads, they take a little bit to conceptualize every aspect of it. And to really see it and understand it and just, what do you do when? And so it was a little bit of a journey. I had faith in the program. The program was working for me. So I really just kept on and listened. I think the first 2 years, I don't think I really spoke unless you forced me to be the captain of the group.
Right.
And it was mainly because I was taking all the information and I was understanding, most of it. There was times where, I didn't. I would go back and I'd look at my notes and I'd kind of go over it and just try to conceptualize. And then, and sometimes it was partly, placing the trades. But, and the more I did it, the more I understood. And now, it's true. I can see, like if a stock runs and it's a spread, what that delta is going to be in my head. I can see, how that's going to react to, the price, and I can see how it's going to react to everything else, and what it's going to trigger me in, or what it's going to, this is going to do, and that's going to do. But it took a long time, and it does spread into the rest of your life. I've been able to really, with this knowledge, and pretty much financial knowledge that you just don't get anywhere else. You don't get this in school. You don't get this, pretty much anywhere. I've been able to help my parents with their business and understand, certain terms and how business works, and just even simple things of, how to communicate with loan lenders or, whatever it is. And so I've been able to help guide them in their business venture, especially with, Big Bear got, shut down this last winter for 6 weeks. That's their peak time, so, my mom was like freaking out. I was like, okay, let's not freak out. Let's talk about this, and this. And, I was able to talk her through that, but it's all just from, being in this course, so it's bled into every other part of my life, whether it be, talking with, my wife about, future or bills, or talking with family or friends or whatever, and seeing where, what options. I mean, you don't realize what financial options are available to you as a regular person, until your mind is opened to these different concepts. And then you go, oh my God, how did I not see this before? Like I can do this. And it's, it really opens your mindset to so many different possibilities and so many different factors of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel the same way. It's no secret I own a few other businesses, but I can run them with a great degree of success, largely because I'm looking at Home Depot's top line revenue and how much market share they actually have. And I tease you guys all the time. I say, you're going to go to cookouts and people go, I used to like you. Because, they're always somebody at the cookout. How's your little stock market class going, right? And I thought, you were in class last week in the live program, and I did this whole thing on e-commerce. Do you remember that on Shopify and all the other? And people are like, oh, that's what that is.
I started looking up e-commerce.
Yes. And, everybody thinks Amazon is the dominant one in e-commerce. No. E-commerce is everything. How much product Nike sells on its website, McDonald's sells on its website, Home Depot and Lowe's. So if you are educated, you realize Amazon actually is a small piece of the e-commerce pie, and there's a lot to invest in connected to e-commerce. I also wanted to ask you where you see yourself in the future, because you have 2 kids, is that right?
Yeah, I do.
Have you started teaching them the basics of the market or looking at charts or any of that?
Not looking at charts. They're 3 and 5.
Oh, okay.
I started to tell them, say certain things to them that keep more of a mindset, and the different possibilities that are open to them, and and things like that. So I've said little things to them in a way that is kind of like a life lesson to them that obviously they don't even clock as a life lesson. But my hope is that hearing it over and over again throughout the years, it kind of becomes just something that's ingrained in them. They're like, yeah, of course. So, and I've learned that from you, talking about how you've done different, said different things, or, done different things with your daughters. And I'm like, that's a great idea. And so I've instilled that as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I'll tell you this, they're very, very lucky to have you as their dad. And I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing some of your thoughts and your successes. You make it all sound so easy, and I'm usually the one who people criticize for making it all sound so easy. But let's just be honest. When you're buying and selling stocks, it's not always rocket science. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct. It's definitely not.
Final question of the day. There are people who are going to listen to this, and they're going to say, well, I don't know. This guy said he was really good at math and that he's able to count and all of that. I can't really do it probably the way this guy, Mickey, can, what would you say to them?
I would say that they're probably able to be better than I am at it. There's nobody that can't do this. And in my experience, usually the people that doubt themselves the most are the ones that, if they gave themselves a shot at it, they would be better than most. So I would say, don't think that. Give it a try.
Wow. A little encouragement from Mickey Kasab. Hey, thanks so much for being on the show today. I appreciate it. Mickey, am I going to see you in the next live meeting?
Of course.
Of course, because you always sit in the front, and I know when you're there. So that's a good thing. Well, thank you, my friend, and I'll be right back with some final words right after you take a listen to this. Hey, it's Tyrone Jackson, Wealthy Investor again, and I just wanted to remind you that if you enjoy listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast, be sure to share it with your friends all across social media, including Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you enjoy hearing about success principles that inspire you, as well as interviews with some of my most successful students, I want to remind you it's right here at the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And make sure you download as much free material as you want at thewealthyinvestor.net. I'll see you there. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's show. I try to have as many of my students on. I like it better when they're in studio, but I'm always grateful that they're so willing to give of their time. One of the things that I touched upon in Mickey's interview that I want you to keep in mind, trading for residual income in the style of the wealthy investor means there's always money to be made, right? And sometimes we're a little challenged financially. Something may be going on in your life. That income that we generate from covered call and volatility trading, don't be afraid to use that money to help you in your life, right? So a lot of my students get wrapped up in this idea of like, I want my account to continuously grow. But really, you want your life to always be getting better and better and better. And I mention that only because I'm so inspired this September by how many of my students have chosen to take 3 months off and live in Italy, France, Germany, and even Denver. No disrespect to Denver, but the point that I'm trying to make here, I'm being a little silly, you know that. But the point that I'm trying to make, these people are experiencing financial freedom for themselves. To know that wherever you go in the world, as long as you have an internet connection and a laptop, essentially, and you're trading in the stock market, there's money to be made. But the thing that makes me most excited, and the point that I want to leave you with, what you do for yourself, you do for future generations. So if you teach yourself how to make $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a month trading in the stock market, you can pass that skill off to your grandkids, your kids, and someone you really care about. So one of the principles of the Wealthy Investor Program is not only making money for yourself, but helping others. Think about how you can help others if you have the right financial information. It's powerful. This is Tyrone Jackson, the Wealthy Investor, saying I so appreciate you here, and I'll see you right here on the next Trading Stocks Made Easy.
You've been listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Be sure to rate and review our show on iTunes. While you're on iTunes, be sure to click the subscribe button and you'll automatically receive our next episode.